This is David Smith from Ozcam Online, and I'm going to show you some of the new features in Vasco da Gama 10 Ultimate. But first I want to go back to Vasco da Gama 9, and this is the opening screen in Vasco da Gama 9. You've got your main screen here, and you've got a series 9 tabs at the top here, which give you your basic project properties going right up to 4K and even beyond. You've got the map systems that you use, whether you use country borders, city lights, city names and so on. You've got the route system, the objects and so on. So I want to set a position from the GPS database to be my starting point, and I'll start in Melbourne. So I type in Melbourne and then we go OK, and there's Melbourne. It's in the dark at the moment, but that's OK. So we make that our starting point. And I want to fly to Sydney, so my next stopover point. So it gets tricky to know quite where to go. I can click on the place I want to go to roughly and make that a new waypoint, but it gets a bit haphazard. And so having 2 points set up now, Melbourne and roughly Sydney, this is just very rough, I can now go in and choose the objects that I want. I can choose the head object, as it's called, maybe a 3D object that could be an aircraft. That'll do for now. And so we're flying from Melbourne to Sydney roughly by plane, and we do a rough fly through. We just see where we're going here. We press play and there's our route developing. We can't see the object yet, and there's reasons for that, but the thing about it is there's so many options in here. We've got ways to control our texts, we've got ways to control the camera view, all the different ways we can adjust that, and we've got optical effects and a variety of tools, and we've got then the export options. It's great, it's incredibly powerful, but it's also quite daunting. So in Vasco da Gama 9 everything's possible, but there are so many options which, when you're learning to use the system, is not necessarily intuitive. It's a bit of trial and error comes in. And so one of the nice things about Motion Studios and their team is that they really do listen to feedback from people like me. I sent some feedback saying I was having a little trouble working out the logic of going between the editor view and the camera view, for example. And so they've now incorporated some new changes, very important changes, into Vasco da Gama 10. Let's close this one down. I don't want to save that. Save that, no. And we'll open up Vasco da Gama 10. And you'll see immediately see the new features. So we're going to create a new project. And the first thing you get now in this new version is an option of the kind of level that you want to work at. You can work in the assist mode, which is this module here, or if you want to, you can go into the expert mode, which gives you essentially the same level of detail as we saw in Vasco da Gama 9, the full Monty basically. And what's great is that this new approach has taken a lot of the complexity out of the system and made it very, very easy to do a simple journey. We choose 1920 by 1080, and there's our map. And now we've got a much reduced interface. See up here, there's only 4 tabs: project, maps, easy assist and export, and very simple interface over here on the right. And so we can now go about making our trip incredibly simply. So now we simply begin our map by choosing a starting point. There's one there. We're going to fly from wherever that is in Europe to up over here. There's our second point, and we've now got the section time as 10 seconds up here on the right. There's 10 seconds time. We can have acceleration and deceleration automatically done for us. We have a system here for the route line. We can choose the kind of line that we use very easily. We can choose the colour just as before, choose the colour on the colour wheel. And here in the transportation section, for this stage, and I'll mention stages in a moment, we again select an object, and we have a beautiful option here which is called calming movement. This one up here, calming movement, is very important. It enables you to smooth out really sharp, short turns that might be needed if you're navigating a river, for example. You might go through to avoid the banks of the river, and you make many, many short turns, and it looks really clunky and jerky on the final video. But with the calming movement selected, it smooths those out and simplifies the whole thing. You still don't hit the riverbank, but it's a very smooth motion instead. So again, we select an object, and we'll choose a hot air balloon just for fun. And there's our hot air balloon down there. Now we can choose the object size down the bottom here, make the object quite big. And if we now fly through this and do a preview run, there's our hot air balloon at the starting point, and it's a pretty fast hot air balloon. There must be a jet stream happening here in the atmosphere. But over we go, and we come and smoothly slow down at the end. So that's the standard preview version that we're used to. We have a very simple way of changing the camera profile, as it's called, in the automatic mode. You simply go down here to this little bar here, and we've set by default at what's called side glance at 30 degrees. And I can change that to side glance at 45 or 70 degrees, 180 degrees with a rotation, 180 degrees rotation the other way, and so on. Let's have a look at what side glance 70 looks like. And we'll now do a fly through. And now we're at a much lower angle. And of course all the usual controls work. We can zoom out and zoom in, go right in to see the fine detail of where we are. We can see our balloon over here. This is in our top view. You right click again with the mouse and you can bring the view down like so. And for example, if we choose a 180 degree side glance, let's see how that looks. We go in here and we go play, and now we're flying around the balloon automatically and coming into a position 180 degrees from where we were at the start. Very neat, very, very simple, and quite pretty actually. It's a very useful effect. So what it all amounts to is that in Vasco da Gama 10 HD Ultimate, you can do very simple travelogue videos, but you can also make quite complicated ones with a number of paths and so on, very, very simply in this simple mode. If you want to go into expert mode to do some really fine tuning, I won't do it at this stage, but you go up here to the top right, to the button on the top right there, and press expert mode, and you go back to the full screen with all of the options available very easily. You can't go backwards from expert mode to easy assist mode. It's a one-way trip. So do the basic planning of your trip first, and once you've got that working nicely, if you need to make any minor changes, you simply go into expert mode and finish it off there, then export your video. One of the really nice things about Vasco da Gama 10 is the use of sections. Your trip can now be divided into a series of stages, and you can number those, stage 1 to 10, or as many as you need. And the advantage of this is that at a particular point, you can change to a new stage, and you can change the mode of transport. So if we were to go to a new stage now, we'd add a new stage here, and now we'll go over to here. Now this is stage 2, but back here, if I go back out, this whole section is in stage 1. We go back and we can choose now stage 1 at the top, and we can have a hot air balloon for stage 1, but we can go in and for stage 2, once we identify ourselves as being in stage 2, we can now select a different object for stage 2, and we might choose cars. We'll go by car. So we'll choose a little dinky little car like that. And now what happens if we play our video through, we start off with a hot air balloon, and we do our 180 degree sweep, and then our hot air balloon switches to being a car, and in fact it's driving across the water because I'm doing this in a real hurry just to show how it works, but that's what happens. Now you don't have to have an instantaneous switch like that. What I can do is go up here to fades and have a 1 second or a 2 second fade in and fade out automatically, and we'll see how that looks when we play it back. Here we go, playing that back. So our balloon is hurtling across the land. Then we have a small gap and our car fades in and off we go. Now obviously this is not right. You would be far more precise about the locations. You can obviously dial up locations from the GPS database, which includes about 300,000 towns and cities around the world. But the point is, if you go into expert mode within Vasco da Gama 10, suddenly all of the options, the 9 tabs are now available across the top. The full range of possibilities is there and available for you. The simple mode will work for just about any project you can imagine. It's a really significant advance in making this thing so easy to use. And if you want the fine detail, you go into expert mode. So Vasco da Gama 10, a really superb product, has just got even better and far easier to use.